I tell you, it's times like this I'm glad I'm not back in politics, as we've watched another disastrous 24 hours for British Prime Minister Boris Johnson after more Conservative MPs joined the push to oust him from Downing Street over his handling of the so-called Partygate affair. 4 of his most senior staff have abruptly resigned, including his Chief of Staff and his Principal Private Secretary. For more on this, I'm joined from London by one of Britain's most fearless commentators, talk radio host Julia Hartley-Brewer. Great to have you on the show, Julia. So what happens here? Were they pushed or did they jump? And how's this latest instalment of the saga or the fiasco playing out at home?
Well, I think absolute shock from a lot of people. 2 different stories, really. The 3 men, we think, well, they sort of jumped before they were pushed, very much implicated in Partygate. One of them was the man who sent out the infamous email saying, "Hey, it's a lovely evening. Let's have a party in the garden in the middle of a lockdown, and don't forget to bring your own booze." So I think everyone knew he had to go. The lady who left, though, Mirza, she's actually been considered the brains, the ideas behind the Prime Minister for quite some time. And she actually resigned, she says, on a point of principle over the Prime Minister's attacks on the Labour opposition leader, Sir Keir Starmer, sort of making slurs that he was responsible for the prolific paedophile Jimmy Savile over here not being prosecuted when he was running the Crown Prosecution Service here. It's all very complicated and it's all very tacky. And I think an awful lot of people, certainly when they heard the news that these 4 had gone, were just saying good riddance to, rats leaving a sinking ship, really.
Right, your Chancellor of the Exchequer here, we'd know him as the Treasurer, Rishi Sunak. He was refusing to be drawn at 3 separate occasions yesterday, asked if he was interested in replacing Boris Johnson. That's a death knell for politicians. Is he manoeuvring?
Oh, absolutely on manoeuvres, no question at all. And it was obviously a good occasion for him while the Prime Minister was facing all these issues. There he was handing out yet more taxpayers' cash to try and salvage the problem we've got with our rising energy bills, inflation, mortgages on people's homes going up, council tax, our local taxes going up, and goodness knows what else over the next few months. He was handing out the cash. The trouble is, of course, he's also the man putting up taxes as well to pay for those handouts. There's no question at all. He is the front runner as the next Prime Minister, the next leader of the Conservative Party. But as always with these things, you can't be seen to be the man who wields the knife. You have to be supportive to your Prime Minister boss until the moment when he actually is finally pushed off, probably in the next few weeks, many expect.
So this is an interesting point. I was talking to some Tory MPs over the last couple of days and they're saying to me, one of the reasons Boris is still there is there isn't really a front runner. There isn't a sizable personality. They were hoping that he might prevail if he toughs it out long enough. What do you think?
I think after the resignations yesterday, and I think with all the huge energy price rises, I know that's been an issue in Australia as well, I think it's a matter of when, not if. I think the Prime Minister is a man who, throughout his entire life, has been able to wiggle his way out of things and has just always thought, whether it's being caught with a mistress with his wife, whether it's being caught lying in jobs, and he has a very long history. The voters who voted him in 2019 knew who he was and what he was. It's finally caught up with him, but there is still a feeling that he could somehow manage to wangle his way out of this. So a lot of the front runners, as Liz Truss, who's the Foreign Secretary, Rishi Sunak, you've mentioned, they don't want to tip their toe in the water a little bit too early. They've got to be seen to be loyal until the moment where they are very, very, very sure he's gone. And that process is quite complicated for a Prime Minister who has no sense of honour. He won't resign. He doesn't think he's done anything wrong. He doesn't think that locking down tens of millions of people and then throwing parties in his own back garden or his own flat is an issue. Well, it's certainly an issue for me and an awful lot of voters, including those who put him into power. So the question is, he won't resign. So what we need is 54 letters from backbench Conservative MPs to go into a backbench committee called the 1922 Committee. And those are anonymous and they can go in. And once the magical 54 number is reached, and we won't know whether it's 12 or 53, we'll only know when it's 54, then there will be a vote of confidence. Now, it's very likely that even those members of his cabinet, we think roughly a third of them, in such a vote, which would be a secret ballot, no one would ever know how they voted, they would actually vote against the Prime Minister because they have lost confidence in him, along with an awful lot of his backbenchers and an awful lot of Tory voters.
Right, let's go to the issue of energy prices. You've mentioned a couple of times tonight. £700, that's the predicted amount that an average household is going to have in terms of a hike in their power prices in the next few months. We know gas is a big issue in Europe. We know it's playing out pretty hard in relation to Ukraine. And of course, Boris Johnson was only crowing a few months ago, net zero by 2050. How's this going? I mean, you're a lot colder there than we get winter. How is this affecting ordinary people?
I mean, it is affecting everybody. Whether you are rich or poor, it's affecting everybody. Our annual gas and electricity bills are going to hit, for an average house, £2,000 a year. That is a huge sum of money, totally unaffordable for millions and millions of households in this country. It is a massive issue. And as you say, it comes after COP26 and all these pledges on net zero. And apparently this massive agreement, basically in the media and political class, that this is A, a good idea, and B, achievable, and C, affordable. It's none of those things, of course. It's absolutely insane. I've been arguing against it for a long time. And of course, the government trying to have one policy here, net zero, isn't it great? And then dealing with the energy price crisis, which is entirely of the government's own making. We're reliant on foreign gas because we haven't fracked our own shale gas or gas in the North Sea. We haven't been building nuclear power stations. Back in September, we didn't have any wind. So we had a massive spike in prices because we didn't have any wind to fuel our wind power. There has been a massive failure, not just by this government, but also by previous governments, different political parties for years, to actually have a consistent, sensible energy policy. And the chickens are well and truly coming home to roost. And they're coming home to roost having to have a hot water bottle and have a blanket over them because they can't afford to put their heating on.
There's a lesson there for Australians and the Australian government. I hope they're watching it very closely. And next time I talk to you, we're going to talk about migration, because those boats across the Channel have not abated in any way. But we'll leave that for another time. Thank you so much for your time, Julia.
Thank you.